All right, so again, welcome everyone. We have a big group today, lots to cover about the PsyD and PhD admissions processes. I'm super grateful you're here. Today, I also have here my colleagues, Alex, who is part of the PhD program, Anna and Laura, part of the PsyD program, and my colleague, Nick, who is on the admissions team with me here at PAU. So with all of that, I'm going to get us started. We have so much to cover, and I want to make sure we get through it all. You are welcome to drop questions into the chat. We are going to be specifically talking about the admissions and applications processes today. So if you're more interested in learning about the program, what the programs are about, I encourage you to sign up for one of our open houses. Those are really helpful to learn more about the programs themselves, but today we're really sticking to application and admissions processes. So go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen with you all. Okay, Alex, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the presentation? Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're talking about PsyD and PhD admissions processes today. If you would like, you can log into PsyCAS and follow along with me. I'm going to basically go through each section of the application. So if you want to have your screen up and you're self-logged into PsyCAS just so that you can see and sort of follow along, you're welcome to. If not, that's totally okay. We'll be sending out the recording of this so you'll have it as a reference point later. All right, so first things first, let's talk admission requirements. Generally, they're the same for both the PsyD and the PhD. You have to submit an application, a resume or a CV, personal statement, official transcripts or transcript evaluations, if that's applicable to you, and 3 completed evaluations with letters of recommendation. The PhD also requires prerequisite courses. So abnormal and personality, psychology, biopsychology, developmental psychology, and stats are required for the PhD. They also really encourage applicants to have both research and or clinical experience. The PsyD has recommended prerequisites, so they are not required, but it is recommended to have those same prerequisite courses plus general psychology. They're also really looking to see if applicants have clinical experience for the PsyD program. If you do still need to complete prerequisite courses, you need to have them complete with a B- or higher, and we'll mention this again a little bit later and talk a little bit more about the prereqs. The GRE is not required, and if you do submit scores, we will not look at them, so just keep that in mind. And there is no specific undergraduate major required, but again, these are some of the recommendations from the PsyD program, required recommendations from the PhD program, or sorry, required courses for the PhD program, and then the general application requirements. So, and here's a quick snapshot of the admissions process. You'll complete your application. Again, I've listed what's required, the recommendations. You have to have 3, all your official transcripts, resume or CV, personal statement, and sometimes applicants have to have some other documents, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Then there are initial reviews of the application. So we do holistic evaluations of applications. So we're looking at your entire application, your GPA, your academic history, any work experience, any research experience, your personal statement, your recommendations. They all play into our evaluations when we're looking at applications. After initial reviews, some applicants will be selected to interview. So it's important to know that not everyone will get invited to interview, but some applicants will be invited to interview, and those interviews typically happen in January, February, and March. Then there are second reviews, and the committees decide on decisions, and decisions usually are sent between February and April. Okay. So just a quick due dates and timelines. We are starting application reviews November 1st. So you will be emailed whenever we think your application is complete, And we'll let you know in that email that we're starting at reviews November 1st, and you'll hear from us sometime between the time your application is complete and early April, which is a big span of time. But there are literally thousands of applications coming in. So we can't guarantee regular updates on your application specifically, but just know that there's a window of time set when you will hear back from us after your application is complete. The PhD applications due January 8th, and so is the PsyD application, but the early consideration deadline for the PhD is December 1st, and for the PsyD, it's November 15th. Don't worry about writing all this down. It's on our website, it's in emails, and again, I'm gonna send this presentation to you all later, probably next week. I don't know the specific dates of interviews for both programs yet, but once we've got more information about interviews, we'll share that as well as the information comes in. So kind of just hang tight for that. And once we know more, we'll share that information. All right, so PsyCAS is like a common app for graduate psychology and counseling programs. So once you've gone to PsyCAS, you can create an account if you don't already have one. And it's important to know that you're sending all of your application materials directly to PsyCAS. You're not actually sending anything to Palo Alto University. You're sending it all directly to PsyCAS. And I'll be sharing more in a little bit about why that's so important. Some of you might have had a PsyCAS application in the past. And so you can reapply as what they call a reapplicant. So here where it says reapplying to PsyCAS, you would click there, verify your information, and some of your application materials from the past might carry over to this year's application. So any personal information you've entered, any coursework and transcripts that you've entered or sent to PsyCAS should all come to your new application if you're doing the reapplication process. However, you will need new evaluations and recommendation letters. You'll need to upload your resume and CV again. You'll have to write a new personal statement. And any responses in the program materials section, you'll need to respond to those questions again. And if you do have any new transcripts or updated transcripts, you'll need to submit those to PsyCAS again. But it's important that your previous application was in good standing. So in most cases, folks were in one of these standings in progress or received or had a verified status on their application. Those are good to go to roll over into the new cycle. But if you had an application that was maybe in undelivered status, then it's likely that your materials will not be able to roll over. So if you have questions about that, you can check the PsyCAS Help Center. You can reach out to our team, and I'll share those resources toward the end of the presentation. All right. And for my teammates here, if there are any questions that you think I should answer aloud, feel free to unmute and let me know, and I'll answer those aloud if you want.
Yes, so we have a question about, can you submit your application while the references are still completing their letters of rec?
Yes, we're going to talk about that in a little bit too, but the answer is yes. So you can actually submit your application before your transcripts arrive, before your evaluations are completed. You can go ahead and submit the application, and we'll be looking, we'll check every now and then to see if it's complete. So we'll be looking again for those evaluations to come in and for those transcripts to arrive. Good question. Okay. Okay, so we talked about that. One thing that you'll need at different points in the application process is your CAS ID. It's usually located up in the top right-hand corner. So just something to know that you may need at some point while you're completing your application. And just this is what the screen typically looks like when you log into PsyCAS. This should be your sort of dashboard homepage. So when you're going to add programs, you're going to click the tab on your application that says add program, and you can select a lot of programs. So I've narrowed it down so that for this presentation, you can just see the PAU programs, but there are lots and lots of schools in PsyCAS that you can apply to all through the same application portal. So you'll want to make sure that you add the PsyD program or the PhD program You can also apply to our master's programs if you're interested in possibly pursuing a master's degree. So this is the application page. Right now, you can see that these are incomplete. The goal is to complete all 4 sections. So we'll talk through each section. I'll show you what a completed screen looks like. But this is where you're starting whenever you log into your application. So the personal information section, your contact info, information about yourself. If you're interested in scholarships or financial aid, you'll definitely want to include your social security number if you have one. If you're military affiliated and possibly using veteran benefits, you'll want to have that information here. Our colleague Lisa, who helps out with our international students and our students using military benefits, she'll be able to see that you marked, that you updated that information, and she'll reach out to you if you're admitted to kind of talk to you about what needs to happen next in order to utilize your benefits. And then there's also, you can apply for fee waivers in the personal information section. There are application fee waivers, but those are managed completely by PsyCAS. So we at PAU don't actually have any say in who gets a fee waiver and who doesn't. All of that's handled through PsyCAS. So if you're interested in an application fee waiver, you can check that information out in the application, and you can contact PsyCAS if you have questions about it. The academic history section is exactly what it sounds like. We're going to want to know about your academic history. This is where you're adding the schools that you've attended. If you have prerequisite coursework that you've completed that's required, you can enter it here. Any transcripts, you'll be submitting those in this section. Again, GRE is not required. We do not require the GRE. We are not reviewing GRE scores this year. However, if you completed your bachelor's degree outside the US at an institution where the primary language is not English, you may need to complete a language exam. So if you're completing the TOEFL, we're looking for a score of 80, and you can upload that score report directly to your application. You can have it sent directly to PsyCAS. Or if you complete the IELTS, we're looking for a score of 6.5. So if you have more questions about that, you can always reach out to our team if you're unsure if you need to complete these exams, but just wanted to let you know you can submit those score reports directly to PsyCAS so that they are a part of your application. Okay, so this is a really important section. Colleges attended. You will need to list all of the schools that you've attended. So that includes where you got your bachelor's degree, or if you're still in progress of getting your bachelor's degree, any transfer credit institutions you attended. All of that information needs to be included here in the colleges attended section. You're also going to be sending your transcripts directly to PsyCAS. I'm going to talk a lot about how to do that, but just so you know, it's really important that you send all those transcripts to PsyCAS, because they are going to calculate a beautiful cumulative GPA for you that's equitable across all applicants. So it's really important that you send the transcripts to them. I'm sure at some point the question, if it hasn't already come up, will come up about GPAs. As I mentioned, we do a holistic evaluation. So we're looking at your entire application. But if you're curious about what the average GPAs were for the fall 2022 incoming classes, it was a 3.8 for the PsyD program and about a 3.5 for the PhD program. So if you have a GPA lower than that, please do not feel discouraged. There are also plenty of people with lower GPAs than that. This is just the average. If you got your degree, your bachelor's degree, or your degree outside of the US, then you'll likely have to do what's called a transcript evaluation. Some of you may have already done one, so you can have it sent to PsyCAS. It needs to show that you've earned the equivalent of a US bachelor's degree. So if you're unsure if you have, you can connect with the evaluation companies to see if you can get a copy and check what your US equivalency is. And it also needs to be a course by course evaluation. Most people choose the company called West World Education Services, but you can choose any NACES member. And so I got the link here, but again, you don't have to write it down or memorize it because I'll send this all to you later. And just to emphasize for like the 5th time, the GRE is not required. So and we will not look at your GRE scores. So just remember that as you're doing your application as well. Teammates, any other questions that need to be answered aloud before we move forward?
We have some questions about like what counts as clinical experience, but I'm happy to like put that in the chat, or I'm sure we'll go over it more later.
Yes, you, both of those things are fine. You can put in the chat because you definitely have lots of good experiences. And I'm going to list some later too. So yeah, feel free to do that. Thank you. Okay, ordering transcripts. If there's one part of the application where people get a little tripped up, it's here. Because I think it's a bit confusing that people are applying to our school but not sending their documents to us. So I just want to reiterate, it's really important to send your transcripts to PsyCAS. They are going to calculate your cumulative GPA, which will be attached to your application. They will also be able to verify your application, which signals to us that it's time to look at it to see if it's complete and ready for review. So it's really important to send those transcripts there. You do have the option of sending them electronically or by mail. I can tell you with firsthand experience that mailing transcripts does take a few weeks, which can be a bit frustrating for some folks. So if you can order your transcripts electronically, definitely do that. But I'm going to walk through the steps. So when you've added your colleges that you've attended, there's a button that will say order, and you'll click that button and it's going to open up this screen, this little box here on the right, where you have option 1 to order an electronic transcript or option 2 to order by mail. If you're ordering transcripts electronically, you'll need to know which of these transcript services your school utilizes. Once you know which one your school utilizes, then you'll go into that, whichever one, Credential Solutions, Clearinghouse, or Parchment, and you'll follow all the instructions on how to order your application and how to send it to PsyCAS. There, and if you look at step 3, it says include your transcript ID number. There's a link that says copy, so you can copy that number and you'll need to enter it at some point in your electronic transcript request. If you don't know which of these services your school uses, you can just click each one, type in your school name and see if it's there. You can check your school's website. It's probably faster to just open each of these from here, see if your school's there. If it's not, go back, try the next one. And I think, yeah, you'll just want to make sure you follow steps 1, 2, and 3 listed here. What tends to happen is people get really excited. They want to just get them ordered quickly, but they don't read this screen. And so they miss the part about where to send the transcript and how to get their transcript ID number. If you are using electronic transcripts, this is the recipient name that you should be looking for. Unfortunately, these 3 services have PsyCAS listed with different versions of its name. The name will be in the ordering instructions on the previous page that I just showed you, but it's also here so that you have a reference point, that it might look a little different for Parchment than it does for Credential Solutions. If you're doing a course-by-course transcript evaluation, you will actually need to do that separately with the evaluation service and have it sent to PsyCAS. You can't do that through Credential Solutions, Clearinghouse, and Parchment. If you're ordering by mail, it's really important that you download your transcript ID form. It will have instructions for your school's registrar to tell them how to send the transcript to PsyCAS and make sure it's connected to your name and your CAS ID. I will show you what that form looks like, but the instructions are here. Use the transcript ID form, you're going to download it, and then you're going to mail that form to your school's registrar or email it. So I actually have done this process before, and my school was especially complicated because they didn't offer the electronic transcript services. So I actually had to go through and order a transcript from the registrar, and in my order, I could attach my transcript ID form. And so then my school, once they received it, they then mailed my transcript to PsyCAS. So that form looks like this. It will have your name, it will have the institution name, and it has instructions for the registrar. So you really don't need to tell them what to do because it's all listed here. They'll follow the instructions, and then their office, the registrar's office, should send you an email to let you know that they've completed your order. This form automatically generates in PsyCAS, so you don't actually have to recreate it each time. You can just click that button here, download the transcript ID form, and it'll pop up each time for each school. So when you click order, if you clicked order but you did it for like UCLA or something, then UCLA's name will be in the institution line. Okay, so the last part about ordering transcripts is you can do it later. If you submit your application, you can always come back and then order your transcripts later. You just go back to that academic history section, the colleges attended section, and click order for whatever outstanding transcripts you still have. And then again, proceed with those same instructions. It's important to know we cannot accept transcripts from you. You cannot email them to us. They have to come directly from your school's registrar as official transcripts. So if you already have a couple official transcripts and you want to send it over to us in a PDF, unfortunately, we cannot accept them. They must come directly from the school registrar's office. Okay, we're going to move on to the transcript entry, which I think is probably what people like the least about the application. It is a pretty lengthy process. Essentially, I mentioned earlier, PsyCAS will calculate a cumulative GPA for you, and they do this by looking at all of your coursework and then plugging it into whatever system they have to crank out a cumulative GPA. But in order to do that, you have to enter all of your coursework into your application. So the course information, like semester, the grade that you earned, PsyCAS will look at all the course information you've entered. They'll compare it to the transcripts that you sent them. They'll make sure that it's correct. If everything looks good, they're going to calculate the GPA, and they're going to verify that your application information is good to go. But again, this part does take a bit of time. They do offer what's called a professional transcript entry, where you just send your transcripts, they'll enter all of the information for you, and you don't have to deal with it. But it does cost extra, so you can find more information in the application itself. But it is quite a long process, especially if you've got several schools and several degrees that you're entering. But I just wanted to give you all a heads up about it. So before we leave the academic history section of the application, do we have any questions that need a live answer? All good? All right, cool. Feel free to interrupt me if anything does come up. Okay. The next section, so we've talked about personal information, academic history, and now we're talking about the supporting information section. So this part of the application is where you're going to work on your evaluations, which are the evaluations you'll get from your references along with their letters of recommendation. We do require 3 from professional or academic references. For the doctoral programs, it is more favorable to have at least one of your letters come from a professor, and even better if it's a psychology professor. We will accept professional or academic references, but if you can get one from a psychology professor, it's definitely going to be helpful. We recommend keeping the language pretty generic, or for you to tell your references to keep the language pretty generic, because if you're applying to multiple programs, you know, they would have to write several different letters. In PsyCAS, you can apply to all of our grad programs, and your recommenders are only going to have to do one evaluation and upload one letter. So it's important that the language is a little bit generic so that, you know, if I'm looking at a PhD application, the letter doesn't say PsyD program, right? It can just say doctoral level psychology program or graduate psychology program. And it doesn't have to say PAU specifically because, again, we're assuming you're probably going to be applying to multiple schools within PsyCAS. A section that's optional, well, lots of sections that are optional are the experiences, achievements, licenses and certifications, fellowships. If this information is in your resume or CV, you really can leave these sections blank. What happens is when we generate your whole application, we get like 7 extra pages of all of this information that actually lives in your resume or CV already. So there's no need to duplicate it. You will not lose any points if you don't answer these sections if that information is already in your resume or in your CV. When you're requesting evaluations, your recommenders are going to upload a letter through the PsyCAS recommender portal, and they're going to complete a very short and easy evaluation form. So they'll rate you on different categories. And then they'll say like, I recommend, I highly recommend, I do not recommend. It's a pretty simple process. Writing and uploading the letter is probably what will take the most of their time. But you'll enter their information here. They will then get an email from PsyCAS letting them know how to do this, how to log into the portal. They'll log in, do their evaluation, upload their letter, submit it, and then they're done. And we'll see it for all of your applications. So whether you're applying to one of our programs or several, their same letter will cover all of those. Due dates. Sometimes people ask about due dates for the evaluations. It's really up to you. I would recommend as soon as possible because we won't actually review the application until all of the evaluations are completed. So the sooner the better. As far as who is submitting your evaluations, we're looking for current or former university or college instructors who've taught you, academic advisors, volunteer coordinators, current or former supervisors and managers are fine, clinical work supervisors, research lab supervisors, all excellent recommenders. I would avoid getting recommendations from your elementary or secondary school teachers, which might seem very obvious, but surprisingly, there are some, well, it might be surprising to you that some people have maintained those relationships with like high school teachers or even elementary school teachers I've seen for quite a long time. And that's really great, but they're really not the best people to write recommendations for you. So if you're going to choose someone who's taught you, make sure they're from the college university level. Informal mentors, we really don't want to hear from them. We want to hear from people who have direct work or academic experience with you. Personal therapists, or if you just happen to know a therapist, really not the best recommender. Your own clients, customers, family, friends, longtime family friends, or anyone else who doesn't know you in a professional or college or academic context are not going to be very strong references. So really try to stick to college, university professors, people who've supervised you, people who know you in academic or professional settings. Okay, we're about to move on to the next section of the application, the last section of the application. Any questions you want to have answered live?
Yeah, we have a question about asking a work colleague who maybe has like the same level in a company as them.
A good question. If you can get the letter from a supervisor, it would be preferable. I think, especially for our doctoral programs, because they are so competitive, it's important that the recommendations are really strong. So if you can get the supervisor to write them, that would be better. We will accept the letter from a colleague, but I would encourage you to ask a supervisor if you can. Any other questions you want to have answered live?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Just regarding transcripts, like let's say like I haven't graduated yet, should I get my transcripts after I graduate or just as soon as possible?
Great question. As soon as possible, we want your most current transcript. So a lot of our applicants are still matriculating through undergrad. So we need your official transcripts, the most updated version. If you are admitted, we will come back to you later and say, hey, you've been admitted, you're going to come to PAU. That's very exciting. And we need your final transcript. So go ahead and submit the most recent version that you have now. And then we will come back to you if we need to get your final transcripts later.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and take Nicole's question. Nicole?
Hi, thank you. So I was just wondering, I just wanted to clarify. So you said to upload, like I actually graduated, like I graduated from an institution and then I took extra credits to complete your prerequisite courses because I'm not a psychology major. And I was just wondering, since I do have 2 transcripts to send in, is the overall GPA going to be calculated by me or is PsyCAS going to calculate that?
No, PsyCAS will calculate it. You don't have to enter your GPA at any point in time. They'll do it for you.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Claudia?
Hi. I was just typing about, so for example, myself, I haven't worked in a clinical setting in about 9-8 years, but I have a lot of previous experience. I have a BA in psychology and I have a lot of experience, but it's old. In terms of a recommendation letter, could a supervisor, either current or former, from like a tech field, could that work as a letter of rec, or should they all be either academic or psychology based?
No, they can definitely be professional, especially if you've been sort of out of the psychology realm for a while. If you can get some of those older experiences, someone from those older experiences to serve as reference, that would be awesome. But you can certainly use your employer if that is an option for you.
For one, okay. And then also one more question about that, which is these are kind of my biggest hurdles because of the old experience. I did get a certification in, and I went to a school to get certified as a substance abuse counselor so that I can get more recent experience for specifically for this application. I haven't done it yet because I probably want to apply to next year. However, question, my professor from that program, she's a psychologist. Can I get a letter from her?
Yeah, if you're in the program or have completed the program, sure.
Yeah. Fine. Yeah, I mean, it's not from a university, but can I potentially get one from her since she was recent?
Yes, that should be fine.
Okay, great. And then, so I graduated from Berkeley, 10 years ago. If I got a letter of rec from a professor from that university where I got my BA from, would that still be okay also since it's so old, or what do you recommend for the third one? Yeah,
that would be fine. If you're still in communication with them and you feel like comfortable asking for a reference, yeah, that's fine.
Got it. Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've got 4 folks that I just wrote your names down. I'm going to come back to you. I want to make sure we get through the rest of these slides, but I've got Angela, Katie, Ivy, and if name could pronounce Husna, I think. I've written you down. I'm going to come back to you in just a few. So haven't forgotten you. I just want to make sure we get through the rest of the material, and then we'll get your questions answered too. Or you can type them into the chat if you feel comfortable. Okay. All right, so we've covered evaluations, recommendations. The last section of the application is program materials. Super, super important section because it's specific to each program. So this section is going to be different for the PsyD, the PhD, and our master's programs. So let's jump into it. The first thing that you'll see when you click on the program materials box is the home tab, which is going to have a lot of information about the program itself. It's very important to read that information. It's all about that specific program. And it's got some links that you can click on if you want to get some more information from our website. There's a questions tab that will have very specific questions related to the program. If you're in the PsyD program, or if you're applying for the PsyD program, it is, again, highly recommended that you have some kind of clinical experience. For the PhD, clinical and or research experience is definitely encouraged. And of course, the question that we probably get the most is, how do I apply for both programs? We want to be able to have you apply to both if you're interested in both, without having to pay for both. So it's really important that you kind of follow along here if you're considering applying for both programs. In the PsyD application, there is a question that says, would you like to have your application considered for the PhD program? If you select yes, then you are going to get a series of questions about the PhD that you would have answered if you were submitting an application for that program. But instead you'll answer them within your PsyD application. And when you answer yes to that question, it allows us to then add the PhD program to your profile. So if you're considering applying for both, sure, you can just submit 2 applications if that's what you would prefer, but we are also happy to help support that process by having you complete this short section on the PhD within the PsyD application. It doesn't work the reverse way. You cannot apply to the PsyD through the PhD application. So if you want to apply for both, apply to the PsyD and answer the PhD questions within this section. I will send this out because that was kind of a lot of words that all sounded very similar and maybe a little confusing. So you'll be able to play it back or see this slide later. But again, if you want to apply for both programs, apply to the PsyD and complete the section of PhD application questions within the PsyD application. In the program materials section, you are also going to upload your resume or CV in the documents tab, and then PhD applicants, you will be able to list your prerequisite courses and the grades that you earned for those courses. Okay, so I said you can click yes to that last question asking if you want to be considered for the PhD. If you do, you will then find this area at the bottom that says PhD Co-Applicants. These are questions that you would have answered in the PhD application itself, but they're here in the PsyD application instead. So you can answer them directly in your PsyD application, and anyone who's reviewing your application for either program will be able to see this. If you're concerned about how it might look if you apply to multiple programs, don't be. We have so many applicants who apply to several programs. I've even had some applicants who have applied to all 5 of the options that we have in PsyCAS, and it's definitely not looked upon negatively. That's more than okay. So don't feel discouraged about that. You can certainly apply to multiple programs. The resume, CV, and personal statement, you will upload in the program materials section within the documents tab. Your resume should include any relevant work experience, clinical experience, research experience, employment, volunteer work if you have any. If you are wondering about the personal statement, I'm going to show you what the personal statement criteria and writing prompts are in just a second, but just a couple of tips. Make sure you follow the formatting criteria and stick to the page limit. Make sure you're actually addressing what the prompt is asking or stating. Read it aloud, edit it, and then go back and re-edit it. Ask a friend, a colleague, a loved one to review it for you. It's very clear when someone's taken that extra step to make sure that their writing is clear and makes sense versus they just rushed to put it together and never checked it a second time. It's very easy to see that pretty quickly. So just make sure that you take that extra 20 minutes or extra day or two to really edit and have maybe someone else take a look at it if that's an option for you. For those who are going through the PsyD application to be PhD co-applicants, this is also where you are going to attach your PhD personal statement, because you do have to have a separate personal statement for the PhD. So under optional documents, there'll be a little description here. You can add your PhD personal statement right into your PsyD application. These are the prompts and the formatting information for each of the program's personal statements. I'm not going to read it, it's in the application, but it's there. I get lots of questions from applicants who don't know how to find the personal statement information, don't know where to upload it, but it is in the application. So just make sure that you are clicking through every box, every tab to make sure you don't miss any parts of the application. Prerequisite courses, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but biopsychology, abnormal or personality psychology, developmental psychology, and stats are all required for the PhD. The PsyD recommends these same prereqs in addition to general psychology class, and they have to have a B- grade or higher. They also need to be completed before the fall term begins. So if you've already finished them, cool. If you still need to do them, you have until the fall term begins to have them completed and send us those official transcripts. Again, you can submit your application and then do these later. You don't have to have them done before you submit your application. And then if you have more questions, you'll get the presentation, so you can click this link, but we actually have a page on our website that describes where and how you can fulfill the prerequisites if you haven't done so already. So to the question that came in about clinical experience, there are lots of examples here. I'm not going to read all of them, but if you worked at a crisis hotline, if you've been a therapist in some capacity, ABA therapy, language and reading specialist working with students with special needs. And then the PhD highly recommends having some sort of research experience or interest in research. So PsyD really leans more heavily into the clinical experience piece. The PhD is looking for both or clinical and research experience. Okay, so went through all the sections. You get back to your home screen because you've completed every part, and you're going to see all of these little circle things are green, which means you've completed each section. Celebrate, pat yourself on the back, do a little dance. Very exciting because it is quite a long process. It's pretty intensive, and it took a lot of your time. So definitely once you get this, you're in good shape. Then you can get to this page where you can submit however many applications you want. You'll probably have way more if you're applying to multiple schools. For the purposes of this, we just submitted one application here, which was the PsyD application, but you can submit your application for any of our programs from the submit application page. And it will automatically calculate how much they cost. And that'll change based on the number of programs you're applying to. And then throughout the next few weeks after you've submitted your application, if you want to know the status, you can check the status of your application on your own. So what we found is that a lot of applicants seem to not know how to check their application status. So we would get questions, well, what's the status of my application? So that's why I'm showing you this page, because you can go check any application status that for apps you submitted through PsyCAS in your PsyCAS account. So when you're in your PsyCAS home screen, you're going to go over to the Check Status tab, and you will be able to see the status of your transcripts, your evaluations, and your actual applications. So transcripts, you can see in this example, well, it might be a little small for you to see, but it says arrived 1 of 2. So that means there's still one outstanding transcript that PsyCAS has not received. And the evaluations, it says requested, 0 of 3 have accepted. So none of these evaluations are completed yet, but when they are, it should say 3 of 3 completed. And then the application status, the one application submitted here was the PsyD, and the application was received. We will be signaled to review your application when the status is changed to verified. So PsyCAS, once they have all your transcripts, your application's completed by you and submitted, then they will look through your transcripts to verify all of your academic information. So once they've given you verification and your transcripts are and your evaluations are all completed, then your application is considered complete and eligible for review. Any questions from my colleagues really quickly before I finish us up and we start answering questions from our guests?
Hey, Shelby, I did want to say one thing really quick about rec letters, because you guys have a lot of questions about them.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so I know that there's a lot of stress put on like a psychology faculty member or psychology staff. Even if that person like was a long time ago, I would be hesitant because they don't know what you've been up to. I came out of this program right out of undergrad, and one of my rec letters was not a psychology professor. She was my boss from my summer job, which was literally teaching children about science. Like it wasn't related to psychology any more than the most it was related was like neuroscience, but it was like, we want more of to know what you've been up to. If it is a recommendation from 10 years ago, isn't going to know and isn't going to be able to speak to that experience. So I hope that helps you guys and maybe eases a little bit of the nervousness.
And to add on to what Alex was saying, thank you, Alex. When we're looking at your application, what we want to know is like, how did you get to this point? Why now? Like, why do you want to be a psychologist now? Why do you want to get your PhD or your PsyD now? What is it that you want to do? So whoever can speak to qualities about you that answers sort of puts that picture together for us, that's going to be really important. So if it's someone who, if you were a teacher, right, and like you taught at a school, or I don't know, maybe you worked at a daycare facility, or you did some other type of work, maybe you've been in tech and like you see the need for psychologists in tech or something, like that's the kind of stuff that's really helpful for us. So like Alex was saying, find folks who can like really speak to your journey of getting here and like the kind of worker you are, the kind of learner you are. That's all going to be super helpful. Thanks, Alex. Okay, we are almost done with slides, and then we're going to jump into all y'all's questions. But I just want to reemphasize, you can check your application status, your transcript status, your evaluation statuses on your application. So just log in at any point in time, go to this tab, check it out. These are some additional resources. The PsyCAS Help Center has instructions for every single part of the application that they can walk you through. PsyD admissions info, PhD admissions info. I will share this with you so that you have these links that you can reference later. And if you still have questions, you can reach out to our team, admissions@paloaltou.edu. And with that, I'm going to jump to your questions. I'm actually going to stop sharing, and I will be typing in some questions as we go along if they seem like ones that might be helpful to add on to this slide. So let me stop sharing.
There are a couple of questions about like what faculty to put in the statement of purpose, if that's okay for me to answer.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So unlike other doctoral programs, like a PhD program, you're not applying to like work with a specific researcher or a specific faculty member. You're just applying to the program. And in the PhD program, you would then, I think at the end of your first year, be selected into a specific lab. So on your, in the PsyD, you don't have like a specific person that you have to stay and work under as like a traditional PI. So in your statement of purpose, you can put anyone that you are interested in working with, especially for the PsyD program, looking at faculty across PAU and then core faculty for the consortium. And then in the PhD program, absolutely put people that you're interested in working with or interested in learning more about their research, even if they're not one of the like core faculty. But you don't have to choose someone to work under, you just apply to the program.
Thank you. That's really helpful information for everyone to know. Thank you. I want to come back to the folks who had their hands up earlier. If you already had your question answered, just let me know, we'll move on. But Katie had a hand up earlier. Katie, you still here?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I have two questions. My first one is definitely very general. And so in the PsyCAS application, it asks a general question about COVID-19 and how it's affected your application. And it's quite long. It's up to 2,500 words, I believe. And I'm just wondering if you want people to answer that question, if you want people to take the whole space to answer that question. I'm sure you don't want to read that much if our personal statements are 1,000 words, and just any advice for answering that. And then if you want me to come back to my second question in a minute.
Yeah, let me go ahead and answer your first question. That is an optional question. It is a PsyCAS question, not a PAU question. So if you feel like, there's something you need to say that you couldn't fit into your personal statement, feel free. If you don't answer it, that is absolutely okay too. We are not looking for 2,500 words about how COVID-19 impacted you, but if you really feel compelled, you're welcome to answer it, but you're not at a disadvantage if you don't. And I think if we had all of the faculty here who look at applications, there would be varying responses of like, maybe, or like, definitely not, don't answer. So totally up to you, but we are not like really, if you answer it, we will read it. If you don't, we are fine to skip right over it. Katie, go ahead with your second question.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention that in the chat too. It's 2,500 characters, not words.
Characters.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So not an essay.
Sorry.
There are reasons that you weren't able to get like clinical or research experience because of the pandemic. It would be potentially helpful.
Yeah, that's typically what people, I've also seen some kind of like quirky, cool things people have shared about, I got stuck in like on vacation for 6 months and this is all the stuff I learned. You can answer whatever you want. To Anna's point, like if there's something that kept you from pursuing some part of your journey to being a psychologist, you can definitely share it. But you do not have to. Okay, Katie, second question from you.
Yes, sorry, thank you. My second question is about study abroad transcripts, because I did not study abroad at like an abroad institution of my own institution. It was a separate school, but the credits are on my transcript and they're separate because it only transferred credits. And so if I order a transcript from the study abroad institution, it'll be 2 separate transcripts, but my home institution will say pass fail and my study abroad transcript will say the grade. And so I just don't know which one to put when I'm inputting my transcript.
So if you are going to include the second transcript, then you can list whatever grades are listed on that transcript. However, if you have a semester of study abroad and the classes are listed and the grades are listed on your like home school, I don't know if that's the right word, but like your main school's transcript, if the courses are each listed and each course has a grade, you're welcome to just include that without ordering the second transcript. If you are uncertain, email us and I will get back to you to let you know for sure. I had someone today actually send me a snip of what their transcript shows, and then I was able to go look at their PsyCAS application, look at the transcript, and confirm they didn't need an additional one for study abroad. So you can certainly reach out if you're unsure. But Katie, it sounds like you have a grade listed on your main school transcript, so you can just use that grade if you want to. But if you'd like to have the full extra transcript, it's totally up to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Angela, did you get your question answered, Angela?
Not really. I also have 2 questions. So my first question was about the abnormal psychology requirement. So my university has abnormal child psychology, which I've taken. Does that fulfill the requirement, or do you want me to take like actual abnormal psychology?
That should work. You can also shoot me an email of the syllabus if you'd like, if you want me to just double check, but it's most likely is going to be fine.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question was about the transcript. So for the official transcript, I haven't graduated yet, so I'm still attending my BA. You still want an official transcript, not an unofficial transcript, even though I haven't graduated yet.
Yes, we need your most recent, most updated official transcript. Yeah.
Okay. And then I took community college classes throughout high school and a little bit throughout undergrad as well. You want that as a separate transcript because half of those classes are on my BA transcript, but I never earned a degree from my community college.
Yeah, it's anything that's listed as transfer credit or shows up on your bachelor's degree transcript, we have to have those extra transcripts. So community college, if you transferred schools, like study abroad, which is a little bit different, like I explained, so you probably don't need an extra one, but community college, any transfer schools, we need all of it, yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, Ivy, did you get your question answered? Ivy, are you still here?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much.
Awesome. And I'm the name is Husna. If I pronounced it wrong, I'm so sorry. Please correct me and let me know.
That's it. Thank you. I wanted to about I'm taking asynchronous courses and I don't really have a connection with the professors for my prerequisite classes. I mean, but I'll still reach out to them and ask them to write them.
It's so if you don't feel like they can really speak about you in a compelling way, you don't have to ask them. If you have other references that you can reach out to that know you better, that can speak more about your work or academic abilities, you're welcome to ask them. So it's really up to you.
Okay.
I would say if they don't really know you, though, probably not going to be able to write a good letter for you.
Got it. Yeah, because I was thinking I've been out of school for 7 years and I'm just taking these community colleges courses that you guys are requesting. So, but I can ask like previous managers and all that.
Yeah, if you feel like there will be stronger references for you, then that would be the route I would go.
Okay. And then I'm taking next semester like a psychology statistics. Is that equivalent to the statistics that you guys have listed?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you mentioned statistics. We get the question a lot, does research methods count? In most cases, it does not. So if you're unsure, you can send your syllabus over to us and I can take a look. But statistics, whether it's psychological statistics or just like regular statistics, intro to statistics, those classes will work. Good questions. Did you have any others?
And the biopsychology, is that the one you were just referring to? You're saying that you guys don't need a research methods course?
No, I'm saying research methods does not usually fulfill the statistics prerequisite.
Okay, but yeah, it looks like you guys don't even need research methods.
No, it's not a required prerequisite.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Sure. I see a little hand up from Elizabeth.
Hi there.
Hi.
Okay, I have two questions. The second one's depending on how the first one gets answered. So just to clarify, I did order a transcript through PsyCAS, but I did also manually input the grades as well. Okay.
Sorry, I missed the last part. You manually inputted the grades as well, and then what did you say?
Ordered the official transcript through PsyCAS.
Yeah, so you're asking if you, I think I don't know what your question is, sorry.
Okay, sorry. I think I read it or answered it in the chat, but so you do have to, in PsyCAS, you have to input your transcript, like the specific classes, like where it asks you to type in everything. You can pay to have it like automatically done for you based on your transcript, or if you want to not pay for it, you have to input them for free. So you always have to send an official transcript, but you can also pay to have that transcript like automatically reflected on your application.
Thank you.
Got it. And so then I guess my second question would be, so when the transcript's getting reviewed, like it's asking me did you repeat courses or anything like that? There's one in specific that's asking me about advanced placement. So I did take an AP psychology course back in, and it is on my transcript, but when I say that I have fulfilled an AP, advanced placement course, it doesn't allow me to like pick it or show up on, I guess, this question. So I don't know. I guess what I'm asking is, how would I get past this question?
It's very specific and I can't see it, so it's hard for me to say, but what we can do is connect and I can show you where in the Help Center you can find more guidance on how to enter AP coursework.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
And actually, I'm gonna, because we are probably gonna wrap in just a couple minutes. So let me just drop the Help Center link into the chat. You can go there, you can search different topics, and it'll show you more instructions on how to navigate parts of the application. So just put that in the chat. I am going to answer Ariana's question, and then we may have to wrap because I know some of our students here, PAU students, probably have to get going soon. So Ariana, go ahead.
Hi, sorry. So I wanted to just ask regarding like, I was a daycare teacher and preschool teacher for 6 years, but I've only been doing ABA therapy since May. Would that preschool teaching experience be considered clinical? I know that there's some PsyD students that go to PAU use that, but I'm not sure like how you guys view that as.
I would say it's not viewed as necessarily clinical, but it's definitely a strength to have worked with people, especially if you are looking to work with like children in psychology or working within like an autism community. It's definitely positive to mention the ABA and that you worked as a teacher. It's not technically clinical, but you can always like formulate or share about it in a way of how it informed why you wanted to become a clinician.
I think you should definitely include it. I know someone in the PhD cohort who also has similar experience. They taught preschool for quite a number of years. It's very relevant, especially if you're interested in child psychology.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And I also wanted to cover the age group question on the application. It says like what like age group on which you would most likely want to focus on during your training. I want to focus on autistic individuals, which may range from like children to older. I don't really have that preference. So let's say I choose children because that's mostly my focus. Would that be affecting what classes they'll choose for me, for example?
I think, so I'm gonna just give you a quick answer because I just talked to a faculty person about this. They are moving towards sort of holding people to what they select in the application. I'm not saying that you permanently will have to do whatever you selected, but that is something they want people to really sort of pick something. But the students, you all know better than I do about that. So if you want to jump in with a quick reply, because I only have that one sort of perspective on it.
Yeah, I think part of it, at least for in the PsyD program, they used to be a lot more adult focused. So they were taking less people who were interested in working with kids, which is no longer the case. I think it's just easier for them to know like workload for faculty. There are certain classes that are child focused for child focused people only and adult focused classes. So understanding like who is interested in what is really helpful for them in determining like how to create a balanced cohort for both the PsyD and the PhD. And then in terms of like what classes you take, if you do want to work with children, you would have to take the like child focused classes, but you always get to choose like your own electives if you can. At least in the PsyD program, you can take electives. You might just have to use one of the electives towards a child program. But it doesn't mean you can like never work with adults.
Right, okay. Awesome. And just last, I know this question might be hard to answer, but I've always been curious, like what makes like PsyD graduate courses different from college psychology courses? I know that's kind of like, might be.
No, yeah, I think it's pretty easy to answer. Like graduate courses tend to be more discussion based. They're less focused on like test performance and memorization and things. It's a lot more discussion based, and your grade will be mostly around like participation, at least in the PsyD program. There are obviously still assignments, essays, finals, things like that, but the bulk of like what they are trying to do is just to make sure that you understand and can like critically and like introspectively relate to the material.
Thank you for answering that, Anna. I am going to go ahead and sort of get us wrapped up. But what I would like to share with you really quickly is the admissions email address. If you send anything there, our team makes sure that it gets to the right person. So whether it's me or someone else, we will get it to the right person. The other thing is, for those of you with more questions about the program, I highly encourage you to attend one of our open houses. The next one is on the first Saturday in November. And then there's another one the first Saturday in December. There are usually also current students there, faculty there, and some of our admissions team as well. So highly recommend those if you want to dig deeper into the programs themselves. I will be sending out the recording and the slides for this presentation, hopefully within the next week or two. But if you have questions, you can email admissions@paloaltou.edu, and it looks like some other folks have popped their emails into the chat. So just want to express all of our gratitude for you being here. Thank you, Alex, Laura, and Anna, for being here today and answering questions and being awesome. I hope to see all of your applications very soon, and hopefully we'll get some communications between us and you in the next couple of months. So have a good weekend, everyone. Thanks again.